Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm back with a sketchbook painting, and today I'll be painting a very simple urbanscape. I love painting urban landscapes, especially nighttime, so I can play a little bit with the lights, and then you've got like the cool concrete in contrast with the warm light. So I'm hoping this will turn out. So first I am sketching out this neighborhood or this alley. The left side is going to be like a little building, and then a couple of trees lined here, and then we'll be adding the lights and the electrical cables. Once I've lightly sketched it out with the pencil, I'm going to paint the sky first. So for the sky, I'm using turquoise blue. I find when painting urban landscapes, it's much easier when I sketch it out first, so I know like my placement of things, and it's just much easier to fill it in. Once I painted the base of the sky, then I take a little bit of white mixed with emerald green and a little bit of cobalt blue, and then I'm going to take a brush and lightly lighten this side of the sky. And then after that, I'm using a wool brush right now to add just a little bit of clouds. I'm using Prussian blue for this, mixed with a little bit of ultramarine blue. And in the middle of this cloud, I want it to be a little bit of a glow, so I'm adding more white. So I'm using a wool brush and going around the edges of the cloud to kind of soften it by going around in circular motions. And then I take Naples yellow and I continue to dab it in the middle where I wanted the glow to be. So once that is done, I'm going to start to paint this building on my left. So in the introduction of my video, I mentioned that I want this to have like warm lights against cold concrete. So for the buildings, I'm using gray mixed with purple and blue. And this is where I map out the lampposts or electrical cables, 2-in-1, and I'm using black mixed with brown. I actually have very shaky hands, so it's a bit of a struggle to draw a straight line. And then here I'm going to add 2 windows. I'm just going to paint it in darker gray, and then I'm going to outline or frame it in black. Once that is done, I'm going to paint this patch on the wall here in orange yellow. But I'm going to mix the orange yellow with the color of the wall, so it's easier to blend in. And then I'm going to warm it a little by painting orange. So I'm using acrylic gouache for this painting, and I love this medium, especially on paper. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just dipping it in water because the gouache reactivates itself when there's water. So it makes the whole blending process so much easier, and you can see that the orange blends in nicely with the purple background. Once I'm done with the wall, I'm going to add the shadow of this pole here, and I'm going to paint it with dark blue mixed with a little bit of black. Then I'm going to mix orange with brown, and I'm just going to add a little bit of highlights on the pole where the light will be. So I'm just going to paint a little curved rod, and at the end of it I'm going to add the lights. So first I draw a circle in orange, and inside I paint it in lemon yellow mixed with titanium white. Then I'm going to wet the brush and I'm going to drag the paint out so you have this kind of light beams shining out from the center of the light. So right now I'm painting the other 2 electrical cables / lampposts on this side of the wall. The color for these 2 poles are the same. I paint them in Marte black mixed with a little bit of brown. And on this side of the wall, I want it to be a bit darker. So I'm using gray mixed with purple and blue, but I add just a tint of black to it so it becomes a little bit darker. And the same thing as earlier, this is where there'll be lights as well, so I'm going to add a warm patch on this wall. Because the light will be shining down, so the shape of it will be facing downwards. So first I start by mixing a little bit of white to the original color of the wall, and then I draw the shape of where the light will be. And then I add a little bit of warmth to it by painting orange around this yellow patch. And I repeat for the wall behind it as well. So I'm just kind of like dragging the paint downward, and in the middle to give it the extra glow, I paint it in yellow, mix with a little bit of white. Once that is done, I draw my lights and then I take a bit of white paint and I drag it downwards. Next, we're going to work on the back of this painting. So this is going to be like a residential / commercial neighborhood, and I wasn't sure what to add, but I knew I wanted to add a bit of lights behind as well. So the color theme remains the same. I paint this fence and this house in a darker shade of purplish blue, but for the windows over here, I paint it with orange mixed with purple, and then I add lights. So I draw the circle in orange, and then in the middle I add it with yellow, and then I add 2 dots, just kind of like bouquet, like a small bouquet light at the window, and that part is done. Now we're going to work on the pavement. I want this to be a little bit of blue because there's just a lot of purple going on already, and I love blue and purple. I think they go so well together. So for the pavement towards the front, I'm painting it in a darker shade of blue, and behind near the house is going to be like a lighter shade of blue. And right below the light here, I'm going to paint this patch of the road in a little bit of orange. So I thought the back looked a little bit plain, so I kind of like went back and add a bit of details because white would be too jarring. So I add white with just the blue, so it becomes like a really light blue, and I draw 2 lines. That arrow there is like a kind of like hit or miss. I'm not really sure if I wanted to keep it there, but I've already painted it, so I'm just gonna leave it there. So for the sidewalk, there'll be too much blue going on, so I wanted it to be a bit different, but a kind of like similar as well. So I'm mixing purple with blue to paint the sidewalk, and then here right below the light, I'm adding more warmth to it, because that's just what this whole painting is about. It's like cool tones versus warm tones. And I continue to brighten up this side of the sidewalk with more orange by kind of just connecting it from where these lights are shining on the wall. And I just drag out the paint, and then on these 3 boxes here are going to be trees. So I fill up this box with grass. I use a dark shade of green mixed with blue and just kind of like draw the shape of the grass, and then now I am drawing the tree trunks. But because I've sketched it out earlier, so it's kind of easy, especially when there's just like perspective and angles going on. I find it so much easier when you draw it out first in pencil. So for the trees, I'm just kind of draw this rough shape of the tree, like it's like this round shape, and then the tree behind it and the bond behind it I'm painting in dark brown. But because it's 2 circle, I'm using a fine tip brush right now, and then I'm just like doing I just dab the tip of the brush around the edges so you can see the leaves of the tree. And for the tree behind, I do the same thing, but I use orange mixed with brown. And now I add a little bit of highlights to the tree because there's a light shining there, so I'm using orange mixed with yellow. And I use the tip of the brush, and I continue to dab it around the middle part of this tree in orange and a little bit of orange yellow, because I'm going to add another light here to kind of balance out the landscape, because there's like 3 lights on the left, so I want there to be another light on this side of the painting. So once I draw the lamp, I take the brush and then I drag the paint out from the middle, so you get this kind of light rays coming from within. Now for this last step, because the sky looks pretty blank and I love adding cables, I don't know why, but it just kind of gives this very industrial look to the whole piece. I use an angular brush because I find that's the best way to draw thin lines. And then I connect the cables to the lamppost, and then I just drag some across the sky, and it is finished. I hope you like this simple piece. I actually really had fun painting it, and I kind of like how the colors turn out. There's a balance of warmth against the cool background. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Goodbye.